why have we decided to have any leadership changes at all? It turns out that finding stewards is difficult. And that's because at the moment we have what I think of as general purpose stewards, who basically need to know everything about everything that's going on. And we often say, oh, if you want to know something, just ask a steward. Well, that's quite a big task to take on. And often, although we're blessed with lots of people with time and energy that they want to give to the church, they're restricted with either small children or a job that takes them away on Sundays sometimes, various things that mean this general purpose role doesn't quite work. And we found it increasingly difficult to find new stewards at the church general meeting. We're meant to have a team of 6 at all times, ideally, and that's proved very difficult recently. So, at last year's general church meeting, it was this year, sorry, apologies for the incorrect thing on the slide. It feels like a very, very long time ago, but April or May or June this year, we agreed at the general church meeting to try to explore a different model for leadership. It's not radically different, but it's a bit different. And that's been led by the existing stewards team and some previous stewards and Chris Armstrong Stacey. In October, at our last church council, the church council agreed with the proposal that that team had been working up, and the idea is that at the next general church meeting, that's when we'll officially switch to the new leadership structure, but the idea is to sort of start getting there beforehand. And in particular, between now and the next general church meeting, we need to have some names for people who will take on new roles. It's not like any jobs are going away, they're just changing a little bit. So this is what things will look like, we hope, in the future. Obviously, still led by our minister, and then there'll be 6 teams, if I say underneath the minister, as it were, a team of worship, so primarily with what happens on a Sunday morning, but also some other responsibilities as well. A caring team, which is much like the pastoral visitors and pastoral secretary now. Learning and praying, so a team responsible for things that are worship related but aren't worship on a Sunday morning, things like house groups, liaising with the guild, all kinds of, there are so many ways that we learn and pray as Christians, and if we restricted ourselves to just what we did on a Sunday morning, we would be much the poorer for it. Children, families and youth kind of speaks for itself, I think. Lola's not here to contradict me, but hopefully people already have an idea of what that is. Outreach, things like Feel Good Friday, the Listening Place, lots of stuff needs coordinating and making sure that we don't tread on each other's toes and arrange multiple things at the same time. And finally, social and fellowship also involves with the guild and also things like the Easter breakfast, and in the past we've had trips to Savernake for barbecues and things like that. So each of those teams would have a coordinator sort of leading it. And the role of the coordinator will vary based on the team. It's, to some extent, making sure that someone is doing each job that needs to be done. The idea isn't that that coordinator does everything. That would just be a disaster. But they know the right people, they organise rotas where necessary, make sure that everything's running smoothly. And those coordinators would form the leadership team, who would still meet with Helen on a reasonably regular basis, support Helen, and also take on some things that don't really fall into any teams. So when it comes to liaisons with the circuit, for example, the leadership team is still there. And then we've still got a finance committee and a property committee. I'll just wait for the ambulance to go past. And the treasurer and the chair of the property committee would be involved in the leadership team when they needed to be / wanted to be. So, we'd make sure that everyone knows what's going on, and if they need to come to a leadership team meeting with a proposal, that's all good. You'll see communications mentioned there. We realise we have a bit of a hole at the moment. We have a website, which could do with a bit of love, let's say. We have Facebook groups that Lola is very active on, and we have our YouTube channel. We could do with someone as a communications coordinator, so it's not sort of one of the teams, one of the congregation-facing teams in quite the same way. We expect a bit more detail on that to sort of come out over time, but it's really these 6 posts that we're looking for initially. So, there will be no doubt many questions, but these are the ones that I thought might come up, and I'd sort of head off at the pass. The word stewards can be useful or unhelpful. We've decided for the moment to call these coordinators for the teams to try to get everyone out of the mindset of, oh, I'll ask a steward. Like, the worship coordinator is not the right person to ask about Feel Good Friday, for example. Whereas if you've just got stewards, people understandably think they can ask any steward anything, and that's part of the problem. In terms of reporting to Methodist Connection, where constitutionally we have to have stewards, the coordinators are stewards. There are somewhat similar structures being developed in Caversham, for example, and there they do call them, the worship steward, and I can't remember the other names, but they are calling them stewards. We've, for the moment at least, decided to move away from the term steward, basically to make it a cleaner break from one system to the next. Hope that makes some sense, just in terms of we don't want each coordinator being asked about all the other teams. However, in other terms, like supporting Helen, importantly, yes, we absolutely would form, the coordinators would form a leadership team, still very much there, meeting together to make sure that nothing falls between stools and that we don't, as I mentioned before, tread on each other's toes, and supporting Helen. You may be thinking, I'm in the flower team, or I'm in the musicians group, all kinds of things. Are those teams all going to be disbanded? Absolutely not. There's a lot that is already working brilliantly that seems to the outside world as if it just runs itself. I'm aware there's no such thing as a team that runs itself. There are very hard-working people organising the flower rota and the musicians rota, and I want to pay tribute to everyone who is running a team so smoothly that it looks like it's easy. We don't want to disturb anything that's working well. It will be a case of finding out how those existing teams either fit easily within one of the larger teams, like the musicians rota and team feels like it fits into the worship team quite neatly, with occasional things for social, concerts or whatever. But please don't panic and feel that any contributions you're already making are unrecognised. They're really, really not. And I'm sure the transition will be smooth. And there was one concern raised by a few people when we initially proposed this at the General Church meeting, which was, oh no, not more meetings. No, none of us like meetings. They are a necessary evil. The aim would be to have possibly the same number of meetings, but them be more targeted and efficient and useful in that front. So, final slide, because I'm aware coffee is there. I need one myself. What comes next? So, firstly, probably most importantly, please pray for the church as a whole, for those who are trying to navigate this change, for everyone who is thinking, oh, maybe I could be one of the coordinators, maybe I could serve in one of those teams, and for your own calling. I firmly believe that each and every one of us is called to service in some way or other, and all differently. So please pray and listen. If you want any more information, you can ask myself or Chris. We probably have the most detail. We've been talking about this ad nauseum for ages, frankly. But also you can talk to any of the current stewards, or John Drabble and Jerry have been on the sort of team exploring this as well, or Helen, of course. We're particularly interested at the moment in identifying the coordinators, because we would like to take those names to Church Council in January and start a sort of job shadow so that we can make the transition smooth and sort of gradually reduce the general steward's workload as the coordinators ramp up. Although obviously it will only become official at the next general church meeting. So we're particularly looking for coordinator names. Please have a think and a pray and see whether any of those roles feel like maybe they don't fit where you are right now, but it's worth thinking about, is that something that I think I might be able to help with in a few years' time? These are not jobs for life by any means, and that would be a bad thing if they were. So we want to make sure that we have something sustainable. The whole point of doing this is that it's been a bit unsustainable in the past. Do also have a think, if you know right now, coordinator isn't the kind of person I am. I'm a doing the washing up kind of person, which is absolutely vital too. You probably don't need to talk to anyone right now, but still please be thinking and praying about what service you would like to offer. And then when those coordinators become a little bit more firm in terms of who's going to do what, be ready for the call. We expect to have a bit of a stewardship drive in the new year where we will be really asking for everyone to think, where are you going to serve? How can you serve God in this church? I think that was all. Have I missed anything, Chris? Okay. If anyone has any questions that they think other people might be interested in as well, do shout or raise a hand. Otherwise, we can have coffee and mingle and chat. I hope you're, at least, many people don't get excited about leadership structures. But I do think there are opportunities here. I think this is God moving and working. We've had so many services with God is making something new, and leadership structures are one way that God can help make something new happen within Tilehurst Methodist Church. So I am genuinely excited about it, and I hope there will be a buzz of conversation where people are thinking, oh, that means I'll be able to help in that particular way. Any questions for now? Go get coffee. Thank you very much.